I'm Max Beasley, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
This is Andrew Berkeley, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
Hey, this is Level Up Leroy, and you're listening to the 5D Podcast.
Get yourself ready for an interdimensional sensory experience. Welcome all to the dimension of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. This is the 5D Podcast.
Hello there and welcome to the 5D Podcast, brought to you by Stuart and Zach from 5d-blog.com. Welcome to those of you listening live on Twitch. Also, welcome to those of you listening on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn and Stitcher. Be sure to check out the 5d-blog.com website for blog articles, competitions and news. And of course, check out the 5D YouTube channel, the details for which can be found on the 5D website.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. We've got another special, haven't we, today? So,
well, the first half of a special.
First half of a special, yeah. Which we'll talk about in just a second. We've got Yuri Lowenthal. We're going to be talking to, although we have talked to. Well, we've already recorded it. So, for those of you wanting to listen to our sparkling repartee for the news and reviews and sparkling insights, unfortunately this week you'll have to do without. I'll go elsewhere.
Well, at least it means they don't have to sit here and listen to me all bunged up with hay fever.
Oh, Pooka, how's it going?
I'm doing my best not to give it a go.
Yeah,
an old snort in the microphone.
Yeah, the way that you're snotting down your microphone at the moment is very attractive, and maybe I'll screenshot that and put that out as one of our one of our little features.
Before we get into that, let's just do a little bit of coverage. We've got plans for the next podcast, which is going to be a part 2.
Yeah,
and then we also have plans to watch the Tomorrow War. Have you watched it yet?
Tomorrow War? I haven't. No, it came on Prime a day or so ago, and I've been avoiding any kind of reviews from it. So yeah, I want to. I'm really kind of keen on watching that, even though it's probably going to kill me, my mind and everything.
We'll need to talk the final episode of Loki, which will be next week.
Oh my God, is that next week?
I think it must be. It must be.
Oh man, because I've just seen episode 4.
Because we've had so many specials, we haven't really talked anything recently.
No, and we've also got the Ice Road thing with Liam Neeson, which I think you've seen yet, have you? Because obviously you're.
So I think what we'll need to do is we'll get part 2 with Yuri nailed, and then no matter who's on the blower for the following week, we're going to need to tell them to jog on. Give us a little bit of time. Let us capture ourselves. Let us get back to basics. Do a little bit of what we do.
Yeah. What about what if one of our guys contacts and says, "Look, I'm free now."
Okay. Well, if Spencer Garrett, Yul Vasquez, Mark Minchaka, any of the boys listening, don't
hey,
be
I
shy.
was watching the last season it was a final season of Bosch this week. I know you've been watching bits and pieces of that, and our man Spencer was in it. He was naughty. I sent him a tweet, which he sent me back a twirling mustache, I think hashtag emoji type thing, and he was naughty in that. And I told him I wasn't pleased. I said, "You think you know somebody?" And then they turn around and they do that to the main character. It was not nice. So we've got.
We need to do a part 2 with Spencer Garrett, because that guy is such a cool dude.
He really is, and he still puts up with me tweeting him, and he replies back. It's so nice. It's decent, and as well as talented and all that stuff. So that's what we'll be doing in the future. We'll be doing a few extra things over the next couple of weeks. As I say, we've got the second part with Yuri. We had to cut it slightly short because of the Zoom technicalities and so forth, the timing.
We probably should go premium. Let's be real.
Yeah, we should do. We should
probably should.
upgrade. Because we're rolling in Dosh now,
Mhm.
we can probably easily upgrade to it.
Or we should at least just ask people if they'll use some free version of something.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe if there's people out there wanting to kind of sponsor us for it, that'd be nice, and pay for it for us, essentially. But essentially, we've got Yuri coming up, and he's great, isn't it? I mean, it's 35, 40 minutes, and he is such a class act. We teased him at the beginning for making us wait, which he did make us wait. He was doing the.
He's one of those who you could just sit and listen to him tell a story. It's like
he's a great interviewee, isn't he?
It's like well-rounded. Like you ask him a question and then you just get.
He was really good. Yeah, because for the first 10, 15 minutes, I got him to tell a story about him and in his younger days.
It's nice that we're sat here saying what we're about to say. What
I know, right? Yeah, don't bother listening to it all.
Maybe before we jump into that, let's just talk football.
Oh,
Super
okay,
quick,
all right, okay.
Because
all right, okay.
we did this chat with Yuri about 7-8 days ago.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
We're doing a little bit of a breakdown intro just now, but last night the football was on. England,
it was
Ukraine.
So good.
Oof, 4-0.
It was so good. I mean, semi-finals now of the Euro. It's just...
I heard someone the other day was talking about how it might be coming home.
I must admit I haven't heard that phrase at all anywhere. And please don't ever say it to me again, because it really gets
the Denmark clash could be spicy in the semi-final. Well,
I've just realised that it might be on the day that we said that we were going to be doing our kind of recording of maybe the Tomorrow War and stuff. So we might be a little bit, I don't know, uptight.
Yeah, maybe.
In advance of it. But that'd be quite good. I did make sure as well, because Yuri suggested a date for part 2, and I must admit, I will be honest with him when we speak to him next, that I did check to see that there wasn't a football match on at that time.
That's good.
Featuring, because I know that would have been embarrassing, especially when we would have to tell them to keep quiet for a minute while England were on the attack or whatever. That would have been just a minute, Yuri. Just a minute. Wait till the corner's taken, and then we'll carry on. Football was great though, wasn't it? Yeah. It was surprisingly for us. I mean, I know you had to keep quiet because your little one was sleeping. And by little one I mean baby. It wasn't a euphemism for anything else.
Because if it was a euphemism, it wasn't sleeping by full time, I tell you.
I thought you were going to say it, but it wasn't a little one by full time. Anyway, I'm really sorry I even brought that up, as it were. But it was surprisingly. I mean, you may be listening to this now. He's thinking, "What the hell are they going on about?" Because I will tag him into this, but it was surprisingly unstressful last night watching it. We watched it, and we it was great, wasn't it? It was cool. I was so happy.
We should probably get into it then, the main event. So before we get into it, just make sure you head over to 5d-blog.com if you enjoy what you're listening to, and then drift3d.com, drift3d.com.
There's some good
your 3D learning needs.
There's some nice Tesla stuff over there.
I've just finished that one actually. About to start on a Ford GT next week.
Should I tag in Elon Musk into this? So you can have a look at what you put together for the. What was it that you've done?
I made a 3D Tesla Cybertruck.
Okay.
Yeah, an instructional video on how to build one.
It looks really cool. That looks really cool. Okay, so we've got the Euro thing coming up, and as I was saying before, it was really good. We spent 10 minutes talking about stuff that really had nothing to do with his career, but it was really great. It was funny and entertaining, and there's lots of stuff in there about his career, which is, honest to God, an IMDb list longer than you can sort of measure.
Longer than he's got an IMDb list longer than My Little Man.
Maybe not quite as long as if England get to the final. Anyway. All right. Shall we do this? Shall we let people listen to Euro? All right. Okay.
Stuart.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Sorry for the delay there.
It's okay. So keeping us waiting like a proper actor should do.
God, no! Those are the worst kind. They're the worst.
We were just sat there going, "Oh, here we go. We've got a diva. Is making us wait."
Right. Stashwick told us he'd be trouble.
Stashwick said, he said, I'll pass you on to Yuri, but the guy is a wee bit of a diva, and
but
so
you're gonna have to deal with what comes, the package that comes with it. I apologize.
We're finally getting to talk. Finally getting to talk after the little. I apologize for the stops and the starts and everything else, And obviously, you had family stuff that kind of got in the way as well,
Yeah. Whatever.
So, how are things going with you, man? How's it going over there?
They're all right. Yeah.
Keeping busy. You've managed to sort of, keep your head down and keep things ticking over a wee bit. I've been watching your stuff on. Was it Instagram? Listen, there's something I just want to talk about very quickly. Sorry.
Yes.
Before all the Spider-Man stuff and the Prince of Persia and all that stuff, which is great, the most important thing I want to talk to you about was something I discovered about you, which blew my mind, and I am so jealous. It's probably the most jealous I've been about for anybody ever. The fact that you once got drunk with Joe Strummer. Is this correct?
This is correct. Would you like me to tell you that story while we're on today?
I do, because that is about being a big fan of The Clash, and almost meeting him once. A friend of mine did meet him. I'll tell you about that in a second. It's the coolest thing ever. So tell.
Maybe we should just lead with that.
That's what I was thinking.
because that story did come before all of this acting stuff.
Yeah. So when would this be then? How the statute of limitations have passed now? You can talk about this.
Yes. No, I think I talked about it the day after. So I think the statute of limitations on that was very short. I was living in Japan at the time. I believe at the time I was studying. I'm trying to remember now whether it was when because I studied in Japan. I did my junior year abroad from college at a place called Kansai Gaidai University in Osaka, and that would have been 91, 92, I guess. Okay. And then I came back. I graduated in 93, and then I went back to Japan to work for a couple of years. I'm pretty sure that it happened when I was, and I can't remember whether it was on which side of that was now, but I'm pretty sure it was when I was studying there. And we used to go out and see bands as often as possible. Now, going to see a band in Japan at that time was really expensive, because even in like the small club shows would run you like 6,000 yen, which was like $60. Yeah. Which at the time was a fortune to go see a band. But we were in Japan, and what we would do, which in retrospect is a wild abuse of white privilege. When we would go and see bands that were American bands or European bands, we would do our best to just sort of push our way backstage afterwards, and sort of act like we were with the band. Right. And they were, and the Japanese were often very polite and very so we would often get backstage, and we had I remember hanging out, backstage with like Lush and Hole and, like the bands that we were going to see. And so the Pogues were going on tour, and the Pogues are one of my favorite bands. And I shared that affinity with several of my friends in Japan, some of whom are still very close. And we still reminisce about these two nights. But they were doing two nights. And because Shane was in rehab, again, Joe Strummer, who was friends of his and theirs, and said, for the tour, I will front the band. I will, and so all of a sudden it went from we're going to see the Pogues to we're going to see Joe Strummer fronting and the Pogues like all together. And so we got tickets for the first night at that show, and we went, and. Let's see, I'm trying to, the details are starting to get a little fuzzy, but, no, but I think, so we went and saw that show that night. Yeah. And it was fantastic. And they played like maybe like 2 or 3 Clash songs, just because you had to. Yeah.
But
it was raucous, and it was rowdy, and there was much moshing and a lot of sweating, and it was just a really epic time. And afterwards we did our thing, which was we sort of pushed our way backstage, and all of a sudden we found ourselves backstage with the Pogues and Joe Strummer. And they were so cool, and Joe was so nice. We talked, for a little while backstage, and we said, "Hey, thanks so much. We loved it. We really appreciate it. Have a great show tomorrow night." And Joe said, "Well, are you not coming back tomorrow?" And we said, "No, we only had tickets for the one night." And he said, "We'll put you on the list. Come back tomorrow night." So we got to come back a second night, and this time we came bearing gifts. And so we went out and bought a bunch of like Godzilla toys and Japanese treats. Yeah, and we had sort of teamed up with also these Japanese kids who were big Pogues fans, who then we also smuggled backstage. So they were like they were losing their goddamn minds. But so we showed up after the second show. We went backstage and presented them with all these gifts. And I've got this great, picture of Joe holding this Mecha Godzilla toy that we had brought him. And so we thanked them again, and they said, "Well, we're going out afterwards if you'd like to join us." And we thought, we should probably cut our loss, or quit while we're ahead. But we were young and stupid, and we were like, we'll absolutely go out with you. So they said to meet them at the hotel. And we got to the hotel, and we all went out to a bar, and I think Joe sensed that the Pogues were just, the rest of the band was just like, they were just kind of tired and didn't really want to hang out with somebody that they hardly knew, and he sensed that, and so he sort of took us all, himself to the bar, and not to hold court, like there was never a sense of, well, you're here to see me, and let me tell you about why I'm so great.
Stories now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As a matter of fact, at one point, he said, "So, tell me, why are you all here? What are you doing here in Japan? What's your story?" And we told him, and then I remember sometime at the end of the night, him saying, "I'm just so inspired by you guys," and I was like, No, that's supposed to go the other way around. That's not how that works. You can't say that to us. And then at the end of the evening, we were going to pay the tab, and he tried to go for his wallet, and of course we stopped him. And also, it turned out drinking in Japan is an expensive endeavor, and so he didn't even have the money in his wallet to cover it. It was we said, "Joe," he said, let me get this," and then he looked in his wallet and he said. And I said, "Joe, please, for the love of God, let us get this. This has been one of the greatest nights, of our young lives, and then we'll still be telling stories about this, 30 years later. Yeah. So we paid the tab, and we went our separate ways, and it was just so amazing, because I've had experiences where I've met people, famous people whose work I respected, or respect, and who I've idolized, for lack of a better word, and it has not gone that well. Let me just put it that way.
Well, that's the cliche, isn't it? You don't meet your heroes. And, and it can happen that way.
And this was one of those rare cases where, where we did, and it worked, and I'll always I think everyone in the world feels sad, when we mark, the date of his death, or, his birthday, or
absolutely,
But I feel a little extra sad.
Of course, and it's such a cool story, and it is a great story. It really is. And when I read it, I thought, "You son of a gun! That's a great." Forget everything.
You can say "son of a bitch" if you want. It's okay. Unless you've got a thing on your show about.
Oh God, no F-bombs or whatever. If they want to, it's okay. No, my Joe Strummer story is nowhere near as cool as that.
Every Joe Strummer story is cool.
Friend of mine, Kate, her name is. She'd sometimes listen to this, so she'll probably sue me for this. But I'll tell the story. She is convinced that she unfortunately killed Joe Strummer because I know, right? Because She was down in London, and she rang me up saying, "I've just met Joe Strummer today. She'd in a cafe, he was having some breakfast. She did the fan thing, which she swore that she would never do, but she went over to him and said, "Look, we're a big fan of the Clash, and could I say hello and chat and so forth?" And he said, same thing as you, really, decent. He sat her down and they talked. And it was the days obviously before the mobile phones and stuff. So she did have a camera. She got somebody to take a picture of her, and she gave him a kiss on the cheek, and it was great. And she rang me. She said, "I've just met Joe Strummer. It was great." And then I think it was one day later. That's when he died. He had I know, right? The
kiss of death.
Yeah, right. He's convinced that her kiss over the next 24 hours. The heart attack and everything else. So that I mean, it's not a great story as stories go.
Well, but it does reinforce the idea that, because I haven't met a lot of people who have spent any personal time with him, but it does reinforce my belief that he was just a genuinely sweet person.
Yeah, and totally. Sorry, we're going to do we'll do the Joe Strummer show another time. But I also
right.
It's about you, this, right? But I just want to. I mean, Joe Strummer is one of my heroes, and I always think he never gets quite the credit for the. I think he had one of the great rock voices. His voice for me was just so seductive, and it was just beautiful, and the way it ended for him with you talk about the money, the fact that they never made any money from any of that, but anyway, it's a great story, man, and thank you for telling.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking me. Nobody ever really, I have a handful of friends who would find that story interesting these days, and I'm really glad. I'm glad that you brought it up.
I've got Zach, my co-host, with me. Zach's
Zach.
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear
the background?
Zach? Yep.
Yep.
Zach's a big. I mean, we're both. I've been a gamer for many years, and Zach was when we're looking through your IMDb, which is significant. It's 743, and I'm assuming they're all real. You haven't made any of these up. These are all pretty.
Well, I haven't made any of them up, but I'm sure there are a handful of them that are still there that were either misattributed to me or were just wishful thinking. Every now and then, I'll see something and I'll be like, no, I didn't work on that. Like there's like a Boondocks credit. And I'm like, I never worked on the Boondocks. Even by accident, I would have loved to have worked on the Boondocks, but I didn't. And then every now and then, I mean, that's the IMDb is the people's database. Like anybody can post anything to the IMDb.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to actually get false information taken down. So I don't even bother with the handful of things that I've seen that I'm like, I don't think that was me. Some people will invent games that they wished were actual games and then cast them with the people that they wished were in that imaginary game and put it up there, and it either never gets taken down or it takes forever to get taken down. So not everything, but I would argue that most of that stuff.
Okay, all right, okay. That's I mean, still, even if there were a few that weren't yours, it's still 700 plus. It's still we'll talk about some of them in a minute.
I'm no Ron Jeremy, but. But I have an okay list of credits.
Yeah, the way things have gone for him, maybe it's a good job that you're not.
Yes.
Maybe it's too soon to be talking.
Right. No. Yeah. Right. Right.
Because we were talking about Medal of Honor. We were talking about that before.
That's good. I mean, when I was looking through, I thought that would be cool because you've got so many. I thought I'm just going to go Control F, see what kind of games that you've been on. All the way back, I don't know if you remember. One of my all-time favourite series is Dynasty Warriors. And
Dynasty Warriors, yeah.
You've been attributed to a few of those. I think Dynasty Warriors 5 was your first one.
I'm trying to remember. There were so many of them. I don't remember exactly on which game I started and exactly on which game I stopped.
But it's just incredible. The actual body is insane. All of the variation is pretty nuts, going all the way through.
But I used to be a big gamer, and I'm just less. The old man of gaming, where if it's got complicated, if I have to learn complicated mechanics to keep things from killing me every 10 seconds,
exactly
it's just
the same.
too much for my heart.
I feel like these days I can never remember. I was like, which one am I pressing now? X, Y.
Yeah, no, I like to play story type games that that I know are going to be about 6 hours, and I'll sort of be walking through it. I know nothing can kill me. Maybe there's cool ambient music, and maybe a couple of easy puzzles. Like that's my speed game. Like I loved Firewatch, and Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and Edith Finch, and I'm playing Call of the Sea right now. I do. It is interesting because sometimes I'll work on a game and I'll think, this is going to be the biggest game ever. We had so much fun making it, and it was great, and we just knew it was going to do well, and it bombs. That does hurt. Like when we did Sunset Overdrive, I'm like, this game is going to be the biggest game ever. And for whatever reason, it rarely has anything to do with the quality of the game, to be honest. It's marketing, it's timing, it's release, it's whatever it is, and nobody can predict that. And when you are part of a franchise, it is hard for every game to hit exactly with the same force as some of them do. Like with the Fallout, or with some Mass Effect, or Saints Row, or like certain games are really hit, and then sometimes they don't. And again, that is rarely a problem with the the game. I mean, sometimes it is. Sometimes they're sometimes they the developers or the publishers think they know what made it a success, and they're like, let's put more of that into it. That's clearly what they liked. Yeah. And then the next game comes out and it's hyper violence, got super metal music, because they thought that that's what people were playing these days. And they're like, no, we like the Prince of Persia when it was quieter. Like, we didn't need it to we didn't need Godsmack. We didn't need to add that to our game or whatever. So you never know. But I do feel a certain amount of ownership to the games that I do work on, and I do. If you prick me, I do bleed. And but I also know that there's so many elements that go into making a game that it's hard. It's hard to always be on top and to always have a game, even if one of them in that series has been great to maintain, or to hit again and again and again.
Yeah. Can I ask about how you actually got into? I mean, you've probably been asked this 1,000 times. I apologize if you have.
You haven't. We haven't talked about it.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. But the voice acting, obviously, it's a particular area. I know that quite a few actors use it as a kind of secondary sort of level of work. But for you, I mean, obviously, this is your predominant area of work. How did you get into that? Was it something that you kind of fell into accidentally, or did you purposely think, no, this is an area that actually I could do well in? How did it all start?
I did not purposely get into it. When my wife and my wife who's also an actor, came out to Los Angeles together, we were doing what everybody else was. We came out here to be film and TV stars. Like that was, we were doing theater in New York, and then the next step was to actually try to make some money at it, out in Los Angeles where they're making pictures. Yeah. And it's hard out here. It's very hard. And after a while, many auditions and agents, and we were like, well, shit, we gotta. I know we're both doing other jobs. I was temping, and but we need to. Let's try. Tara was like, what other things can we do as actors besides waiting tables and temping in an office to use our acting to make money? And I was like, I don't know. I think we're doing everything. Like, we're auditioning for the jobs. And she said, well, what about voiceover? And I paused. And I was angry at myself because I was the resident nerd in the family. Like, I'd grown up playing video games and watching anime and cartoons, and like, I should have thought of that first. But B, I think it never, like, voice acting never seemed like a job you could get. It wasn't taught. It wasn't taught in school. When I was studying theater in school, they never mentioned it even once as here's a potential stream of income, or part of your career that should integrate with the rest of your career. And it also, just from the outside, it seemed like, well, there are 3 guys and 2 girls who do all of that. Like they don't actually audition for that. It's just, a handful of people who do that.
It's that voice in the cinema, isn't it? Back in the day.
Exactly. It's Don LaFontaine doing all of, the trailer stuff. It's, Mel Blanc or, whoever, Rob Paulson, doing all of the, animated stuff. And so, but we were also coming, on the cusp of, games having more dialogue, having more story, having more disk space, to be able to put that kind of information into a game. But, I said, I told Tara, I said, well, I don't know how you get that job. I don't know how to do that. I don't know anything other than, the fact that I've been loving that stuff all my life. They don't do old-timey radio shows anymore, do they? Is that a thing? And she said, well, I don't either. Let's take a class. So we took an intro to voice acting class, and it was great. And we learned, a lot, about the technique and the types of jobs out there, and putting together that type of demo or that type of reel that you could send out as an example. And in addition, so we put the reel together and we started sending out, agents and auditions and, things like that for voiceover. And it just so happened that our voice acting teacher got a job directing a dub of an anime, a Gundam anime, SD Gundam Force.
Okay.
And he had never, and I think the statute of limitations is out on this one, but he had faked his way through it. They were like, "Have you directed, anime dubs before?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, plenty."
Yeah,
and he's like, "I've never done this before." So luckily I'd grown up watching anime, so I was a bit on the, on the jump for that one. But he was auditioning his students first, or among the people that he was auditioning, and I got a role, and it was my first role in anime and got me into that community, that, super supportive, awesome, wonderful community. And, dubbing anime was a huge jump for me. That was a big leap for me. And I met more people in that community and got referred around, and one little job led to another little job, which led to a slightly bigger job, as those things go. And then even some of those connections led to, prelay animation, original animation, and because I spoke Japanese, because of having lived in Japan, it didn't give me, most of the people in the dubbing community, nobody speaks Japanese. You don't have to. It's not, to be good at your job, you don't have to speak Japanese. But one of the coordinators who knew that I did speak Japanese was helping to cast a few episodes of Teen Titans, where the Titans go to Tokyo, and they were looking for Japanese. So I ended up getting referred to that group, and then all of a sudden Andrea Romano was directing me, and so it was, it's like one little thread connects with another little thread, and and then they said, eventually weave into a carpet. I know you don't weave carpets out of thread, but it's the carpet. Let's just say the carpet has gotten thicker, over the years.
We'll keep that metaphor. It's all right. We can work with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned is it actual feel like a community then, in terms of you guys that work within it, and do you view then maybe people coming in, outsiders, with this is ours, this is our domain? Is it a very supportive sort of community? It's
a very supportive community, and I would argue very supportive to newcomers as well. Like there's not the sort of the gatekeeping aspect or the protective aspect that I felt was part of my theater career, or much more actually even in TV and film.
That's what I meant. Was it a similar sort of thing?
It feels that that world still feels very cutthroat. I still love it. I still love the community aspect of of performing live and doing plays and making films. I love being on set for things, and it's just a an electric, wonderful place to be. But the part of getting the job, that community and those interactions were always very brutal to say the least. And yet I remember early on in my career, right when I was just starting to do some of these anime, dubs, I remember getting a call out of the blue from somebody I had met on one of those shows, another actor. We weren't close at that point. We are very, very much now, but we had, interacted a couple of times. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, I just auditioned for this video game over at, blah, blah studio. Are are you auditioning for that? And I said, no, I hadn't even heard about that audition. He said, you should go crash it. And I was like, he's like, they're doing it today, go today. And I remember hanging up the phone, confused, because he was literally my direct competition. He wasn't just, he wasn't like an old guy who just does this voice. And he's like, oh, I'll recommend it to this kid because he's nice and he's no competition. Like, he was literally my competition.
Yeah.
Was on the phone calling to make sure that I knew about an audition. I remember hanging up the phone being, my first thought is, how's he trying to get one over on me by recommending this?
This is a
trick. Like, what's the trick here? Yeah. But I went and auditioned. I don't think either of us got it, but I mean, from that day on, like I was just so in love with this community, and it's been like that ever since. It's a very supportive community, and I think part of it is actually because somehow, I don't know, we feel, and I've tried to figure this out since then, and I don't know if it's just that everybody feels that there's always room for more people, that there's not. Maybe with TV and film, because it's so ephemeral, people feel like, oh, well, if I don't get this, it's going to be gone, or there's only so it's such a small pool. If I can cut these guys out, then I get a better chance. But it always seems like in this world that there is room for everyone. There's room for the people who are there, and then there's always room to welcome more people. Yeah. I mean, when I got in, I didn't have connections in that world. They made room when I got there, which is awesome. And everybody feels, and everybody in it is so talented, and just I don't know, maybe everybody who's in that community deserves to be there, and there's always room for more deserving, talented people.
Yeah. I mean, who are kind of your heroes to start with then, in terms of maybe voice acting, but also, I mean, you mentioned Mel Blanc. I mean, obviously,
sure. Yeah, it's
probably the god of them all, and that guy was a genius, wasn't he? In terms of
without a doubt,
what he could do.
And Eric Bauza is I dare I say, and he would blush and punch me in the face for even saying it, but I mean, he's the new Mel Blanc. I think he's watching him, and not just because of his talent is like Mel's talent, but he is literally been seeing some that Mel used to. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, heroes and so on. I never really, as much as I loved watching cartoons and playing video games and watching anime, and I wish we could just sort of come up with a term that combines cartoons and anime, because they're both really, it's just animation. But they do have their own separate worlds and styles.
I think some people would be very, because fans, and we're fans as well, but fans can get very possessive of their area, so maybe
super touchy about that. No, absolutely.
But
I never, like, it was weird. It was almost because I think they were so immersive for me. I would just be in the show, like I wouldn't know who the people were who were behind that. So whereas you could say, oh, but you love Chow Yun-fat, because you watch all his movies, or whatever. At the time, it would have been hard for me to call out names, and yet there were names that I recognized over and over. Rob Paulson, being one, and Steve Bloom. I didn't know who Steve Bloom was, but Cowboy Bebop, like there were voices that that kept coming back, and it was hard. Clancy Brown, Clancy Brown has a very a voice, and so while I didn't, because I never saw that as a thing that I would ever have a chance to do, or a career that would ever be, even after I got into acting, I didn't see it that way. So there was never, I didn't necessarily have idols in that respect. Which is funny, because now that I'm in that world, I have plenty of them, and I'm lucky enough to have gotten to work with some of them, and not yet with some others, but I have so many idols in this in this circle, in this in this industry now, because they're so wonderful and so talented.
we're kind of going to be short for time, so we've got about 10 minutes on the call that we've got. So apologies if I feel like we'll rush it through. I apologize. God, there's so much which I could talk to you about. Obviously,
well, then we'll have to do it again sometime.
We'll do a part two.
Todd Stashwick got fucking like more than an hour, didn't he? I will not be beaten by Todd Stashwick.
He'll love that. He'll love the fact that he got more time with you.
Right.
I've got Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. I mean, you say you're a nerd, and I believe you because obviously, I've done my research, and then you know your stuff. And were you nervous about taking that role? And what did you do to prepare for that? Because you've had a lot of plaudits for it, and the game's great, and I love all that. I love Spider Cop and. All the things.
This is my Spider Cop mustache.
It's very befitting. I wasn't going to ask about the mustache. I thought, no, don't be rude and ask about the mustache. But as soon as you brought it up.
It is very recent. It is for another project that I'm working on. It'll be gone by the, and my wife will be very happy that it'll be gone by the end of July. But in the meantime, I'm really enjoying it. I sort of, when I look in the mirror, I see my dad. Yeah, exactly. And after it's gone, I'm sure I'll still smoke, stroke the phantom mustache.
Either go for the kind of the Mexican look, or twiddle the Poirot thing.
If I was really good at growing facial hair, I would try that. But the reason I've never grown a mustache before, really, and held on to it, is because I'm just patchy and horrible. But I'm sorry. Back to Peter Parker.
Peter Parker, Spider-Man. The reaction, because it's been overwhelmingly positive. How's that been as an experience, and what did you do to prepare for it in the beginning?
I mean, it's the best. It's the absolute best. And having grown up, reading comic books and loving superheroes, and both Marvel and DC, I don't have an allegiance to one over the other. It depends on the day. But I mean, I'm obviously, when I get to play, in that world that I grew up in, I'm thrilled. But when it's something, like this, that's a sacred cow, that this is, especially, with the fandom being the world that it is these days, I approached it also. I was super nervous. I mean, this is, Spider-Man. I just assumed that I was going to fuck up Spider-Man for a whole new generation.
It's the one thing I would say, don't mess this up. Don't mess up.
Exactly. And I mean, I wanted it more than anything, but I was also extremely nervous. And what it took to sort of get me out of that was feeling the support of the team, the Insomniac team. I could tell that everyone on board they were all huge fans. They really wanted this to succeed. They love Spider-Man. Yeah. They just wanted to make the best game possible. And Brian Intihar, the creative director on the game, I came to understand very quickly that he was not going to let me fuck it up, basically. So I had to trust. It's interesting. Like I wouldn't trust myself. I suffer, as many of us do, from massive imposter syndrome, but I trusted that the me that he trusted in a way. I'm like, well, I don't trust myself, and I don't trust you. But if you, I trust you. So if you trust me, then I'll trust myself. Like, it's a weird, however we get around to it, whatever gets me to trust myself. But I was nervous for 3 years while we were making it that people were going to hate it. I mean, we got to a certain point, and I was like, this is going to be the greatest game. You get to a certain point and you're like, but I felt that way before on other Insomniac projects. So, so you never know. You never know what it's going to be. But I'm really glad that the biggest compliment I always get are people who say, I've always been a Spider-Man fan and I loved it. And I'm like, then you are the person that I was most scared of and most wanted to say that, So, yeah.
What do you think it is about Spider-Man that kind of, you've got Spider-Man, I guess, Superman, Batman. You've got the kind of three, I would guess, as the kind of, what is it about Spider-Man? I mean, my favorite superhero when I was growing, I was a fan of Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, but I was more kind of Daredevil was the one that captured, for some reason, the Daredevil comics when I was younger. Why is it Spider-Man that resonates, do you think?
Well, I think every every superhero touches every fan differently, and I have I have relationships with many superheroes, many comic books growing up, and different relationships with different heroes. And I think what it is about Spider-Man for people at large is he he doesn't have massive wealth that we will never ever be able to consider.
Yeah.
He doesn't, he has superpowers that we all wish we had. I think that's a very, wish fulfillment thing. That's why people love superheroes and why people love genre, fantasy and like all of that. They wish that they had that thing. But he's got that thing, but he's still worried about paying his rent. And he's still tied up in knots about, this girl, that he has a crush on, but he can't quite manage the relationship. But he's, got these, and he's got this, mother figure, Aunt May, who is, he's trying to keep it all together. I think we're all trying to keep it all together. And even though he's got all this stuff, he's not Tony Stark, in his ivory tower. He's got to go to work, and he's got to, manage this and school and, paying rent and relationships. And I think we can all connect with that.
Yeah, it's relatable, isn't it? It's a relatable guy, Yeah,
he acts like we would if we had those powers. Like he's like, woo, I'm done with my day, my 9 to 5. I'm gonna put on this suit and I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna have some fun and save some people and just do something real. Like I think that's I think so many of us wish, like I think I've been reading Harry Potter to my son, and I think. Like 4 of the greatest words in the English language were, Harry, you're a wizard. Like I think we all want to hear that. Like we all want that deep down inside, and that's why it's magic.
I still every summer around about this time think, well, the owl's going to come anytime now.
Yeah,
it's going to
we're
be here.
all waiting for the owl. We're all waiting for Hagrid to bust down the door, take care of all the things we hate, that are in life. And whisk us off, to Hogwarts. Like that is,
It's what we all want, is it? Listen, man, I'm sorry, but our Zoom time's gonna go now. Can we do a part 2? Can we?
Yes.
I'll catch you on email.
Yeah.
I've part 2 because by the time we've done part 2, you'll have exceeded what Stashwick got then by at least half an hour.
Yes. I have not yet begun to fight. So, yeah. Yes.
All right,
thank
Yuri.
you.
Listen, man. Oh, this has been a blast. I've so enjoyed this, and we're going to do part 2. I'll contact you when we'll arrange. We'll separate them, and it's been a blast, man. It's been brilliant, and we'll sort part 2 out soon.
1,000%. All right.
All right, man. That was so cool.
Take care. Nice.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.